Okay, hello guys. I am going to get started. It is just slightly after 1, and I wanted to share with you some tips and tricks on using MLS Exports in your business. So it's one of those tools that'd be really good to sharpen right now and get some plans in place to execute and work towards in the coming weeks. So you're going to sign into your MLS. And the way that you go about setting up your exports is you're going to sign in, and then up here at the top, you're going to, let me see if I can zoom in a little. Okay, so up here at the top, you're going to go to My Matrix, and then you're going to want to scroll down to Settings. Once you click on Settings, it's going to bring up all of these different kind of shortcuts or kind of custom settings for yourself. If you want to click on Custom Exports, you can click there, and you more than likely will have some already listed here. Exports are set up on the type of search or the type of MLS listings. So you've got some that are residential. You would have, then you would have to set them up separately if you also wanted to do one for multifamily, commercial, vacant land, etc. So we're going to be looking at the ones under our residential. When you pull yours up, it's quite possible that there might be some that are just automatically defaulted here as one that was already set up by the system. So if you would like to set one up for yourself, the way that you would go in and do that would be to click Add Export here on the right. You're going to need to name that export. So for example, if we wanted to do one that said buyer comps, then and that'll be how you will find it later. So make sure to make it a name that you can remember. Then you're going to add each field here one by one. And these are sometimes not necessarily the clearest. I'll show you a little shortcut if you're having trouble figuring out what each one is, or if you're looking for a specific field in the MLS. Every field is available here for you to export on. But if you're looking for one specifically, I can show you a trick and kind of a workaround to be able to figure out if there's something that you're not finding. So I typically like to add, so MLS number is a good one for a buyer export. Status is a good one. And if you just click the first letter, it's going to take you to that first letter, but it only will do the first letter. So like if I was looking for something that started with an A, I'll click on A, and then I'd have to scroll through all the A's. Status is the next one I'm going to add. So I'll click S and then scroll down, and hopefully we will have status as a choice here. I think that it's always good to add the actual street. So you're going to do street number for the street number. Then we have street direction. If you wanted to just add all of the street at the same time, you could do so by just clicking all of those and adding them. And then if you wanted to rearrange those into be a certain different type of or different order, typically you can then just select and then move up or down. So street number, street direction. So street number, we would want street direction that's going to be north, east, south, west. So street number, direction, street, and then street type is going to be your avenue or your street or drive, that piece. Then typically I will go ahead and then add bed. So number of bedrooms. Bathroom full, so that's full bathrooms, and then half baths. I also think that it's helpful to add garage. Garage park is the number of parking spots. So if it's a 1 car, 2 car, and that's going to be what the garage PRK number is. And then garage description. I do a lot of work in the Brookside area. And I always find that it's helpful to know whether those garages are detached or attached, because that does make a difference in the value of the home. And then basement is another good one that I like to include. So basement question mark, typically when you see the question mark, that is going to be a yes or no field. So it's going to be where you're entering whether or not it has a basement. Typically, I would recommend putting basement description for any of your basement exports. And then floor plan, when you're running comps, I always feel like floor plan is a really, really good one to include for buyers or sellers to see. So floor plan description. And then we, moving right along, I like to also include subdivision because sometimes that will make a difference in the price of a property. We will then do price. And you've got a number of different ones for price here, guys. So price, okay, so we could, if we want to add them all, kind of try to put them in order over in, and you can add more than one at a time by just holding down either control or shift. So basically price, previous, original would be, if it was previously listed with another agent, price previous would be what it was listed at when it was listed the last time with a different MLS number. And then price original is what it started at this time it went on the market. Price, and then I apologize, I don't know what price is. Price current is what it's currently listed at. And then price sale is what the sales price is for the property. So I do like to keep those and we can include those. We also like to have some important dates in here when we're doing comps. So you've got all kinds of different, date added was the date that it was added to the MLS. It's not necessarily the date it was listed. Date listed is the date that it was listed. Date modified would be if somebody went in and made a change to it. So that might be that they went in and changed the remarks, or they changed the price, or they changed the status. That would give you some insight into when the last time it was modified. Date off the market would be the date that it went either under contract or put into a temporary off market status, or withdrawn or canceled. Date sold is the date that it closed. And then date under contract is the date that it got a contract on it. But I like to typically include date listed or date under contract. So we're going to do date under contract and then date sold. In addition to that, guys, I highly recommend doing days on market, DOM, to show how long it's been on the market. That's always very helpful when talking to clients and running comps. And then financial concessions. So if there were any financial concessions made by the seller, and then there's also, there's one other field that is super important. So seller concessions, I believe. And again, this is where I'll show you the little term. Yep. So financial concessions would be if they paid closing costs, and then seller concessions would be if they paid for like the sewer to be replaced or put a new roof on. That's always helpful. And then finally, I like to include some square footage. So I think that square footage makes a big difference. So we're going to include square footage. And then the other is total square footage. So let me scroll down. And again, you're going to want to build this out to like what works well for you and that you find you often use when you're consulting your clients. So let me move these concession pieces up. I'd like to move those up by price current and price sale and seller concessions, just so that when I'm running any calculations, those will all be together. And actually, I might just move them all. So if you want to hold down shift and click on the first, so previous price, and the last thing, you can move a bunch at the same time. So you don't have to do those one at a time. You click the down button. Okay, once we have everything saved, it is important, y'all, that you have it say include column names, none, or you can say include a label. Separator. It is really important that we have comma selected. Otherwise, it's going to want to put it into a notepad form for you, which will be really hard to analyze. The comma will put it into a CSV file that you can then save and make changes to. It's much easier. So again, the big important one here is separator needs to be comma and not tab. So you're going to click save. And now you'll see our buyer comp export is here at the bottom. Again, you can move that to the top if you would like. if you find that helpful. Okay, so now we've got our custom exports created. We can click done. And then I want to show you where you have the ability to go in and access those. So from my matrix, you can go in and access those for any auto emails that you have set up. So I have clients here that are on an auto email that they just keep kind of in the loop with what's going on with their home there in Pine Grove. And so I can go in here and do a date sense, and it's going to pull all of the records that have happened since the last time I ran this search myself personally. And I can select, so I could look at a single line, but I can select all of those from an auto email or a save search just the same. And then I can use this export button that's at the bottom. And that's going to bring up the different exports that I have selected. And then here we see the one that we just created, which is buyer comps export. I showed you it. Let me continue on kind of in a couple other ways. So anywhere that you've got where you've got a grouping of MLS listing records, you can come down here at the bottom and use this export button to export that data. So other places, again, you can do save searches. If you have carts created, which are a great way to manage listings for your clients and MLS records for your clients, you can go into that cart and then click on those records and export them there as well. And then often one way would be just to do a simple search. So we're going to go to the search functionality here. We'll click active, pending, show for backup, and sold. I'm going to put some criteria in here. So we'll say the last, let's do the last 60 days, a list price between 0 and 300 with a zip code of 64113. I'm going to say let's pull all single families, 3 or more bedrooms, 2 or more full bath. And remember, full bath are reflected as a whole number, or maybe we'll do 2.5 baths, and then half baths are reflected as 0.1. So if we wanted to say 2 full bath, half baths, it would be 0.2. So 2.5 baths or more, and then 1 car garage or more with the plus sign there. So apparently in 64113, there's only 1. So let's loosen up those a little bit because I can see how many matches down here at the bottom. And we'll go back out 90 days. Sold 90 days. Wow, there's just not a whole lot under 300. There are 2 full bath or more. Okay, so that gives us 28 to pick from. When you come in, you're welcome to choose just let's pick, and let's say that I went through and I said, gosh, this looks really similar. I have a 3-bedroom, 2 full bath that I'm trying to comp for buyers that I just showed a property to that are in the Armor Hills area. So here, maybe it is that I just showed this, lovely house here on 70th Street, and I'm trying to pull comps. So that's a 4-bedroom. Here I might want to pull this one that's also it's on 70th Street. But let's see, here's another 4-bedroom, 2 full bath. Here's a 4-bedroom, 2 full bath. So you can reference just one specifically by clicking through and selecting those, or you can select all here. And then let's go ahead and go down and I'll show you what the export will look like. So once you click that export button at the bottom, then in the drop-down menu, you can buyer comps export. And then it's going to bring up to where you can either edit that custom now that you've created it. So initially you do have to go in and create the export. But now that you've created it, you can actually edit it from right here, from where you're doing your search. So if there was like, man, for this one specific buyer, it is really important to them to know where the laundry is located. And so maybe for this buyer, you're like, I want to make sure that I know, let's pull where laundry is. So hopefully that's one that is easy to, utility, that's what the word is. So utility room. So this buyer, it's really important that you know where the utility room is. And so we're going to add that right here if you'd like, and just click save. And that'll update our export. So then we can go ahead and click export. and it's going to pull up all of the data from the MLS for those 5 properties that we selected. So we have an MLS number here, we have the status of it, the street number, street direction, street, all of this. We've got bedrooms, bathrooms, garage, park, floor plan, subdivision, date under contract, date sold, and then square footage. See here, I pulled main floor square footage, is saying where did it come from instead of, I might just go ahead and delete that for now, or I go back to that custom export here and edit square footage. This is actually, the source is not what I want. And I am gonna want square footage source. Again, that's not what it is. Let's look for SQ search. Told low grade, above grade square footage. So that is probably the square footage piece that we want. So we'll add that, and then we can move it up. Okay, and we can click, and then we would want to just rerun our export again. So we could export those numbers, that information for ourselves again. And show. So here we go, over here. Now we're reflecting square footage total, and then square footage main floor, acres, and the tax information, if that's helpful. Combined days on market, days on market. So combined days on market here is a little different. So it's showing that the days on market this time is 8, but this had been previously listed 140. And then typically what I would do is come in and reformat the information that would be helpful. So sometimes I would end up just hiding some of these fields or deleting those, and then reformatting them. So I'm gonna say, okay, contract date, that's important, or data, let's go ahead and hide this. So contract date, that's important. I went under contract on the 31st of December. And then the price, sometimes I would come in and then reflect this as an actual price. Same here. Okay, so I would kind of come through and then make the adjustments to it, and I'll show you kind of what my finished product was. It's a little bit simpler than this. I would go in and kind of format that data just a little bit. And again, like I often would combine the address to make it, and I have a little macro that I run that helps I created that helps combine those addresses. But back in the day, I would just have the MLS number and the street number kind of broken out. But then I would come in and create this because it was a lot easier for my clients to see and for me to talk to them about how, okay, so your property at 9940 Fontana Lane is a 3-bedroom, 3 full bath with 2-car garage. It's got a finished walkout basement, so you see here. And it's a bi-level, so it's kind of like a split level property, which will be different than these ranches down here. Here's the neighborhood, that subdivision that it lives in, and square footage. I can then do a price, and I do manually calculate that price per square footage. But it made it easier for me to have conversations with clients as we were getting ready to price their home. So I'd say I really feel confident and comfortable pricing your house between $325 and $340. And here you'll see that these homes were listed at $357, and it took 22 days for it to go under contract. And then it took 2 days for it to go under contract for this one that was listed at $315. That was a 4-bedroom, 3.5 bath, 2-car garage. And often, like, I am going through and showing them pictures of the property as well. But so many of my clients I found were engineer types or data types. And it was a lot easier for them to see it in a spreadsheet where they could see where they really kind of fell and kind of compared to these others. So I would go in and end up formatting it and moving things around a little, inserting some, sorting them, and then inserting these little like headers to make it kind of a little more polished. And then I ended up just highlighting and printing this PDF and providing those to my clients at a listing presentation, or sending over a PDF to buyers that were considering an offer, so that they would have kind of a spreadsheet version of the comps to look at, rather than just scrolling through and kind of getting overwhelmed by kind of like that thumbnail view or that full page view of a comp. So it's just a different way to like analytically look at things. Another thing that was helpful about this is it gave me the opportunity to speak through closing costs. That sure, this property sold for $310. They paid $4,000 in closing costs. So really they sold for $306. This also gave me the ability to say, okay, they took 65 days to sell. They were on the market for 65 days. Part of that might be that they started at $329, $950, so basically $330, and that they then ended up dropping the price to $315, which is the price they were at when they received an offer. So them going on overpriced at $330 may have been what attributed to them taking a little longer to sell. I really want to be aggressive about listing your house, homeowners, but let's know too that that might be why that house sat for a little bit longer, because once it got to $315 as the asking price, it ended up selling at $310 with the $4,000 in closing costs. So it was just a really good visual. It's often a good visual whenever these days on market tell a story, to kind of have those all grouped together and gathered together to tell people kind of what that really looks and feels like. So I promised you that there was a way to kind of cheat if you're having trouble figuring out what fields the name of field is when creating your export. And the way that I've done that in the past is to come in here to every single field export, which should be defaulted in your MLS. And you can do that export for your records. And then it's gonna bring up every single field. And so the ones that say false and true are your yes and no questions. So is there a basement? True, yes, there is a basement. But then this would be a way in which you could kind of go tab through and figure out like what is the field that I'm trying to find to be able to help with my export for whatever it is that you're doing. Often in my business over the years, and obviously right now is not a time that we can utilize this, I would use an export where maybe it would be brand new Keller Williams listings that came on, and I wanted to reach out to those listing agents and follow up with them about holding a house open for them. I would have a auto email set up or a safe search that I could run daily, and then just pull an export from that with their contact info. And so you would just build a custom export, and maybe on that you would have street address and price and those kinds of stuff, right? But then also you would include listing agent name, listing agent phone number, that are these two fields. And that would give you the ability to quickly reach out to them and say, hey, Jim, I saw you just listed a great property over on such and such street. Would you be up for me holding it open? The other uses, guys, that I have had for these exports over the years is, let me show you a couple examples. So one is running comps, as we said, for listings and presenting that at a listing presentation. The other is, and it always came off as something that was definitely above and beyond. And like I said, to those that were very data analytical, which has seemed to be a lot of what I attracted, that was super helpful. But I also would do it for researching areas to farm. And as I said, the open houses. So let me show you a little bit about using it for areas to farm. So at one point, I drew out on a map, I sectioned off different parts of an area that I was interested in farming. And I kind of just made my own self-designated areas to try to get an idea of what was already who was already dominating an area. And then maybe where there was an opportunity to come in and get market share easily because somebody else wasn't already holding a whole lot of market share in the area. So I basically had north and south and east and west lines that I kind of worked off of. So in my naming convention and the way that I worked, I would say, so on the east, it was Oak to Trost, which was the west boundary, and then the north boundary, 55th Street to 63rd Street. I would go in and do trace on the map, and I had a auto email or a search set up basically. Selected everything that had sold within a year. So January 1st, let's say January 1st, 2017 to December 31st, 2017. And then I took all of those records and just exported them into a CSV saved it as an Excel document. And then I was able to come in and what I was trying to get at in researching this, I was able to come in and I had all of the listing agents listed here. And so I just took these two columns and I copied them and I added them to another sheet within that document. I then went through and sorted it by listing agent name. And then after listing agent name, I had a second sort for listing or selling agent name, but listing agent name. And then I was able to go through here and calculate exactly how many each person had. So in that section between Oak and Troost, 55th to 63rd, I was able to count, like Debbie Staub had 4 listings. Bill Fields had 4 listings. Looks like Andy Bash had 2. I then went and created this little document that kind of captured what everybody had. So over here is the section that we're looking at right now. And in that section for listing agents, I showed that George Medina had 4 listings. Debbie Staub had 4, Bill Fields had 4, Franny Knight had 3, and Jim Krause had 3. So kind of the way that I worked it is if anyone had 3 or more listings in that area, I added it to this tracking, like overall tracking map. And then I was also able, through that extract, to count exactly how many transactions there were. So there were a total of 88 transactions in that area in the time frame that we were looking at. So then I was able to put in the total number of transactions. And I will say, guys, there's multiple iterations of this. So I think I might, that might be partly why this is off a little bit. So anyhow, in addition to doing the listing agent side, I think you saw in my export here, I had selling agent name as well. So I made another tab with this and sorted it by selling agent name. And I was able to go in and see, does anyone have 2 or more listings listed under themselves? There was a little bit of extra work for some of those people that had like agents on their team, like buyer agents on their teams. And I knew the area pretty well. So I could say, okay, I know that George works with Ely, so I need to include not only George's info, like numbers, but Ely's as well. So if you go back over to my mailer area, that's why I've got listed over here that selling agents, George had 6. This gave me the ability to kind of say, okay, 4 agents and, or how many people had, or these are the listing agents that had 2. And selling agents that had 2 transactions. My assistant and I went in and added additional, but was able to see exactly how much market share was already taken up for all the different areas that I kind of was considering. And it made it easier for me to see, okay, what area is not already saturated by other agents and have a good number of transactions, an average transaction volume that would work well for me. So like this area only has 10% market share taken up. So that was like an area that would be good to consider. There's 100 transactions, so there's a decent amount of transactions to get in that area. Again, and that's something that I was able to get from doing the extract. And then the average sales volume was 223, so it's not a bad average sales price. Days on market average was 40 days on market. So this was a way that I was able to use extracts to build some analytical data to figure out where would be a good place to go and set up shop and kind of farm, right? As I worked through this, I kind of would drill down further and further into different areas to get a better idea of exactly what was, why that area might be a better, where exactly did I want to focus in. There were some areas that I think we all would go, oh my gosh, like I'm going to go farm this area because it's like so great. Armor Hills is one that I think everybody gets really excited to go and farm. And Warnell to Oak, 63rd to 75th Street is kind of that Armor Fields area or Armor Hills area. And like that already had 22% dominated with market share. So although there's 176 transactions, which was a little bit higher than other places, there's also a lot of people already competing and dominating and getting a number of transactions there. So that is one area and one way that I used comps or exports to kind of derive some analytical data on where exactly to focus. You might see I have some color coordinating going here. I just kind of would create for different people that were predominant in those areas. And it was really kind of neat to see where exactly were they showing up consistently. On the Kansas side too, I did the same kind of a breakdown. So you could kind of see where like Chad Taylor had a grasp on things and that kind of a thing. So hopefully this is helpful, guys. Another thing I would say is to get in and play around with it. You'd be really surprised at the number of times that it was helpful. If it was that I was going to be prospecting and I wanted to pull all of the homes in my neighborhood that sold 5 to 8 years ago. And I wanted to specifically do marketing to those people because it was highly likely that they would be moving in the next 24 months. I could go in and do a search for homes in my neighborhood and then export those addresses and work from there to send out marketing to those people. But it was a way that I could go in and identify properties that prospecting wise too in a certain area that sold during a certain time. So hopefully this is helpful. I hope you guys are having a great day. Talk to you soon. Thanks.